Total Wine sells dozens of scotches that are their own house brand. Not one of them says so on the label. No Kirkland, no Trader Joe's, no store name anywhere. Just names that sound like Scottish distilleries, on bottles shaped like Scottish distillery bottles, sitting on the shelf next to actual Scottish distilleries. Two of those names are registered as trademarks to a company you have absolutely heard of. You can look it up in about 90 seconds, and I am going to show you where. One bottle on this list is bottled at 46.3%, with no chill filtration and no caramel coloring, and it costs less than a Glenlivet 12. And the last one on this list is not a bottle at all. It is the reason Total Wine can price this entire aisle the way it does. And once you see it, you will never walk that shelf the same way. 7 scotches at Total Wine, actually worth your money. Number 7. One thing first, Total Wine prices are set by state, sometimes by store, because alcohol law in this country is a patchwork. Every number I give you is a benchmark to check against your shelf, not a promise about your shelf. Number 7. Number 7. Grangestone 12-year-old Highland Single Malt, around $38. Start here, because Grangestone is the bottle that teaches you how this whole aisle works. What is on the label? A single malt, 12 years old, Highland region, aged in American oak, with bourbon, rum, and sherry cask finishes available across the range, and a name with a story attached about Scotland's old whiskey railway stations, and a stop called Grangestone Halt. What is not on the label? Which distillery made it? Now, $38 for a 12-year-old single malt is a genuinely good number. Most named 12-year-olds start in the 50s and climb. The liquid is soft, malty, biscuity, with vanilla oak and a little dried fruit. It is inoffensive in the honest sense of that word. Nobody is going to be unhappy drinking it. Is it exciting? No. Is it the right bottle to hand somebody who says they want to try Scotch? Absolutely. And it costs about what a decent blend costs. But hold that missing distillery name, because at number 2, I am going to tell you exactly how to find it, and the answer is public record. Number 6. Glen Fohdry, 12-year-old Speyside single malt, usually in the 30s. This is Grangestone's sibling, and it is the better bottle, for one specific reason that most people never notice. Glen Fohdry 12 is bottled at 47.1% alcohol by volume. Do you know why that matters? Because the industry standard for a bottle at this price is 40%, which is the legal minimum. Everything above 40% is whiskey that the producer chose not to replace with water. At 47%, you get more body and more texture, more of everything the cask actually put in there, and it holds up when you add a few drops of water yourself. There is no Glen Fohdry distillery. That name does not correspond to any working plant in Scotland. It is a brand created by a private labeling company, and the whiskey inside came out of somebody else's stills. The range goes further than people expect. There has been a 12-year-old finished in Mizunara oak, which is Japanese oak, expensive and difficult to work with, and almost never seen at this price. There has been a peated Speyside expression, which is genuinely uncommon, because most Speyside distilleries skip peat entirely. Somebody at that private labeler is making interesting choices, and you still do not get to know who they are. That is 2 bottles now with the same hole in the label. Let us go look at what happens when a distillery does the opposite. Number 5. Deanston 12-year-old. around $46 to $60 depending on your state. Why is this the most talked about value bottle in American Scotch right now? Read the label. Here is the spec sheet, and read it against everything on the shelf around it. 46.3% alcohol by volume. Non-chill filtered. Natural color, no caramel added. Matured in ex-bourbon casks. Every one of those is a decision that costs the distillery money and gains them nothing on the shelf, except with people who know what those words mean. Chill filtration is the one worth understanding. Before bottling, most Scotch is chilled to near freezing and pushed through fine filters. That strips out fatty acids and esters, the compounds that would make the whiskey go cloudy if you add ice. Those compounds are not decoration. They carry texture and flavor. They get removed so the bottle looks clean on a shelf. Deanston leaves them in. So what do you get? Honeycomb, barley sugar, citrus, and a waxy weight on your tongue that whiskeys at twice the price often do not have. Deanston also sits in a converted cotton mill in the Highlands and runs entirely on its own hydroelectric dam on the River Teith. It is the only distillery in Scotland fully self-sufficient for electricity. The catch, and reviewers keep saying this, is that it is getting harder to find. Word got out, which means the next one is where I would send you instead, and it might be the better whiskey anyway. Number 4. Craigellachie 13-year-old, around $55 to $65. Craigellachie sits in Speyside, surrounded by the most famous names in Scotch. Macallan, Glen Fohdry, Aberlour. And where those distilleries chase smooth and approachable, Craigellachie went the other way on purpose. Their own tagline calls it a most dangerous dram. 46%. Non-chill filtered. No caramel coloring. Every expression in the range, not just this one. What makes it taste the way it does is a piece of equipment. Craigellachie is one of very few distilleries still using worm tub condensers instead of modern shell and tube systems. Worm tubs give you less copper contact during condensing, and less copper contact leaves heavier, meatier, more sulfurous compounds in the spirit. Does that sound like a fault? On paper, yes. In the right hands, it is character. They also have exclusive use of the only oil-fired malting drum at the Glenesk maltings. That leaves a savory, almost umami depth you will not find anywhere else in Speyside. The result is tropical fruit, toasted hazelnut, honey, and a thread of smoke, all at once. It is a strange whiskey, and it is completely unlike its neighbors. Now compare it to the shelf. Glenlivet 18 runs 85 to 110 at 43%, chill filtered with caramel coloring. Craigellachie 13 costs half that and does none of those things. Which raises a question. If a real distillery can sell you 46% non-chill filtered whiskey at this price, why can't the famous ones? Quick thing before the top 3, because that is where this video earns its title. The data on this channel says over 80% of you watching right now are not subscribed. You are showing up for the content, and the algorithm has no reason to hand you the next one. If you have made it this far, you clearly care what you are paying for. Hit subscribe. Number 3. Benromach 10-year-old, around $50 to $60. Why is this one on your list? For a reason none of the others are. It is owned by the people who invented the alternative to buying from a distillery at all. Benromach belongs to Gordon and MacPhail, founded in 1895, and the most respected independent bottler in Scotland. They have been in the whiskey business longer than a great many distilleries have existed. For over a century, their business was buying casks from other people's distilleries and bottling them under their own name. Then they bought a distillery of their own. Benromach sits in Speyside near Forres and makes something the region almost never makes: a lightly peated malt with real weight behind it. 43%, matured in bourbon and sherry casks. The peat here is gentle. Think a campfire 2 fields away, not a hospital ward. What it gives you is a backbone, a savory spine underneath the fruit, and Speyside very rarely has that. Benromach was also the first distillery in Scotland to earn organic certification on some releases. So put those 2 things together. A century of independent bottling experience applied to a distillery that takes actual risks. What you get is a 10-year-old that embarrasses 12-year-olds and 15-year-olds from brands with 10 times the marketing budget. And independent bottling is exactly what unlocks the number 2 spot, because it is how almost everything on this shelf actually got here. Number 2 is not one bottle. It is the answer to the question I left you with at number 7, and it changes how you read the entire aisle. Total Wine runs a program called Spirits Direct. They buy in bulk, straight from the supplier, cutting out the middle layer of the distribution system, and that is why those bottles land where they land on price. So who is actually supplying you? Grangestone and Glen Fohdry are both produced by a company called Quality Spirits International, incorporated in 1986. They do not distill anything. They source whiskey from distilleries, blend it, bottle it, and sell it under brand names they invent. And Quality Spirits International is owned by William Grant & Sons. That is the family firm behind Glen Fohdry, the best-selling single malt in the world. Behind the Balvenie, behind Monkey Shoulder, the largest independent whiskey company in Scotland, still run by the founders' descendants. Here is how you verify that yourself, and I want you to actually do it. Go to the United States trademark database and search the word Grangestone. The registration comes back owned by William Grant & Sons Limited, filed in 2012. Search Glen Fohdry, spelled without the D. Same owner, filed in 2016. It is public. It has been public the whole time. There is more. A California outfit called Alexander Murray & Company created the first American private label Scotch for Trader Joe's back in 2004. They then built Costco's Kirkland Scotch, and they supply Total Wine and Walmart too. So the same handful of suppliers are filling the house label at every large retailer in the country. Different store, different invented Scottish name, frequently the same people behind it. You are not buying a mystery distillery. You are buying a real one that is not allowed to say so. Number 1 is the thing that makes all 6 of those bottles possible, and it is not whiskey. Total Wine did $6 billion in revenue in 2023. 2 brothers, David and Robert Trone, started it as a single shop called Liquor World in Delaware in 1991. Today it is around 250 stores. That scale is the product. What does it buy you? 3 things you cannot get anywhere else. The first is bulk contracts. When you can commit to a full production run, a distillery with spare capacity will sell to you at a number they would never quote a normal retailer. That is Grangestone at $38 and Glen Fohdry at 47%. The second is shelf depth. Over 3,000 spirits in a single store. Craigellachie 13 and Benromach 10 and Deanston 12 are not bottles a supermarket stocks. They exist on that shelf because the store is large enough that a slow-moving bottle is still worth the space. And the third is the part almost nobody thinks about. Because prices are set state by state, the same bottle can differ by $20 or more between 2 Total Wine stores in 2 neighboring states. If you live near a state line, that gap is real money, and it is entirely legal to go and get it. So here is the actual advice. This is not a store where you buy the famous bottle. The famous bottle is priced against every other retailer in the country, and Total Wine has no particular advantage on it. This is a store where you buy the bottle nobody is advertising. The 46% non-chill filtered one from the distillery you have to look up. The house label single malt with no distillery on it and a proof number that should not be there at that price. The store's own scale is doing the work. The famous label is just charging you for being famous, on a shelf where it has more competition than anywhere else in America. So, your shelf. Grangestone 12 as the easy gift. Glen Fohdry for the proof. Deanston for the best value in the store, if you can still find it. Craigellachie for character. Benromach for the peat that Speyside is not supposed to have. And the trademark database when you want to know who actually made it. One more thing, because it reframes every bottle in this video. The company quietly filling Total Wine's house label also owns Glenfiddich and Balvenie, which means William Grant and Sons is on that same shelf, competing against itself under a name it invented, at a price it would never charge for its own label. Is that a scandal? Not really. It is just how consolidated the industry has become. And it works because 8 corporations own effectively every Scotch brand on that aisle. More than half of them are not Scottish. One of them makes handbags. And one of them is holding roughly half of all the Scotch currently maturing in Scotland. I went through all 8 and who they answer to, and that video is on screen now. If this saved you money, subscribe. That is the whole exchange.